This episode of Another Great Day is brought to you by Words, when actions are too loud. It's Friday, January 20th, 2023. I'm Aaron, and this is Chris.
Hello!
And we'd like to welcome you back to another great day. Well, Chris, after a hard-fought election, I think I'm finally willing to concede the election to you. The election of the best guy named Chris on the podcast that we just ran for.
Thank you. It's quite an honor, and I promise to uphold my duties as best Chris on this podcast.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it for a second. Now, looking back, I really should have never tried to be the best Chris on the podcast. I should have waited till next year and run for best AP on the podcast, but you live and you learn.
We can all learn from our losses. Even more than our wins, young man.
Ooh, thank you, President Chris. Well, great point. Let's head over to your inauguration ceremony. I'll see you there. Yes, it's true. I will never be the best Chris because that's not my name. However, there are lots of different elections that happen in the United States of America. There are elections for mayors at the city level, governor at the state level, and of course, the election for the president at the highest level. Not to mention the myriad of elected officials at city, county, state, and federal level. Okay, so this day in history will directly tie into some of our nation's past presidents. Okay, here we go. Now, lots of U.S. presidents were inaugurated on this day. We won't name them all, but here are some fast facts from this day in history. But first, everybody listening, you may not know the word inauguration or inaugurate. So I'm going to break it down for you. Here we go. Inaugurate means to induct or to admit into office by a formal ceremony. So people are going to hold a formal ceremony and they're going to induct somebody into a job. And in this case, we're talking about people being inducted into the job of president. So here we go. And we're going to go from oldest to most recent. 1937, FDR is inaugurated to his second term. 1945, FDR is inaugurated to his fourth and final term. Fun fact, no other president served 4 terms. 1961, John F. Kennedy, or JFK, is inaugurated. 1969, Richard Nixon is inaugurated. 1981, Ronald Reagan is inaugurated. 2009, Barack Obama is inaugurated. And last but not least, 2017, Donald Trump is inaugurated. So there you go. You have a list of presidents, 2 repeats. Well, have you ever been inaugurated to any sort of office, Chris?
I am currently the best Chris on the podcast. So I just got inaugurated.
Oh my gosh, I should not have taken a sip of tea just now. I almost spit that everywhere. Oh, that would have been such a mess. Oh, man.
I have now.
Congratulations. And by the way, you fought a fair fight. It was a very clean campaign. You didn't try to smear me at any point as being a fake Chris, even though,
I didn't even know it was happening, so
that's why you're the man for the job. You're the Chris this podcast needed. I was once inaugurated into Homecoming King senior year.
Whoa!
It was super embarrassing, but I have the picture to show and everything. Yeah,
you've been king before.
And I ruled with a mighty hand.
I'm in the presence of royalty. I think even your daughter has been a princess recently. At medieval times.
Dun, dun, dun. It's true. Our knight did not win, though. We went on the wrong knight. Blue Knight did not win, but he put up a fight. All right. Well, this next segment is called the question of the day. And if you're new to this, we're going to ask a question. And we'd like to encourage you to stop down and really take some time to answer this question with those around you. So we'll give you 10 seconds. But if you need more time or your kids want to talk more or the people in your car or around you want to talk more, feel free to pause the show and come right back. All right. Today's question is, if you were king or queen of your own imaginary country, what's the first holiday you would create? And we'll be right back. All right, Chris, welcome back. I think as far as the question goes, what's the first holiday you would create? I was thinking back to some of these silly made-up holidays like we did earlier in the week, National Thesaurus Day. And I thought to myself, I would have National Chick-fil-A Day because I could eat there every single day. And on that day, as king, I would pay for everybody's meal in my kingdom. They get one free meal. So you can go at breakfast, you can go at lunch, or you can go at dinner, but you get one free meal a day. Or for that day, rather. And that'd be my holiday. What about you?
My first thought was ice cream.
Excellent choice, sir.
So as king, this is what I would do. I would say, all right, the holiday will be, it is ice cream day. And on ice cream day, everyone is to give someone else some ice cream.
That is wonderful. I love that.
A weird concept to give someone else ice cream. Because you have to keep it kind of frozen. So, it'd be July 15th.
Oh my gosh, that's a great point.
Pandemonium, chaos.
Everything's sticky.
But it's on the hot time of the year, so you're just like, oh, I would love some ice cream.
Speaking of trains, we're actually bringing this segment to a close, so the train has reached the station of Discussionville. All right, we hope you had a great time discussing that question. We'll be right back with today's word of wisdom. Welcome back to another great day. This next segment is called the Word of Wisdom. We'll take a proverb or wise saying, read it and comment on it, and we hope that you listeners will take a minute to think about it and talk about it amongst yourselves.
Today's word of wisdom comes to us from Proverbs 18:13, chapter 18, verse 13. One who gives an answer before he hears. One who gives an answer before he hears, it is foolishness and shame to him.
Thanks, Chris. You know, the lesson here, I think, is to listen before you speak. That's right. Listen before you speak. There's a reason the Bible addresses our speech so many times. More than once, more than twice, more than 10 times. Think about last week. We spent a lot of time talking about speech in Proverbs. And that's because your speech can get you into trouble, but it can also get you out of trouble. It can heal and it can hurt. So the lesson here, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and also I'll throw this in there, be slow to anger. This is a helpful little nugget of truth. Well, that's going to bring our show to a close for this week. We want to thank all of you for listening, and we hope you make it another
great
day. Whenever we would go outside, we'd be sent outside, and they'd say, go play. And so I remember going to my buddy's house, and he had a creek in his backyard. Did you ever have any friends who had creeks in their backyard or nearby?
Yes. I do. I remember distinctly. Go ahead.
Do you remember going into those creek beds and like just becoming complete mud monsters?
Oh, nope. Did not do that.
Oh, man.
I was the third child, and the wrath of the parents had come down on the other ones, and I learned from them. I learned from the older and saw I did not want to have that happen to me.
Oh, man. We went into the creek, and we'd be gone for hours, I think. It felt like hours. It was probably like 20 minutes, but we'd be gone and we'd be playing like, we like to play bounty hunters, not Star Wars bounty hunters, but like we were Western guys. We would
like
find
Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, we'd find sticks that kind of could be held like guns. And that was another game we'd play, guns.
Just guns.
Yes, guns or guys. Sometimes we'd play guys where we'd have our action figures fight each other, and that was playing guys.
That's so fun.
Very creative names, obviously.
Tell me your first memory in your life of playing in a creek or being at a creek.
I distinctly remember. I've got one too. I remember I went to my buddy Todd's house, and he had a creek that ran right by his.
What age were you?
I was in third grade.
Oh,
and
okay.
He lived across the street.
Okay.
This is I didn't realize how fancy this was at the time. He lived across the street from Danny White. You know who Danny White is?
I've never, no.
He was the Dallas Cowboys quarterback when we were little kids.
Wow.
That's a big deal. Yeah, he was like the Tony Romo before. He was a great quarterback, but he had a bad O-line surrounding him. Same thing. So I know that's subjective. Anyways, But the creek ran by his house.
There
And
was sport happening with sport person. Cool.
I know. You're on the edge of your seat. Danny White. Yeah.
The O-line. Sorry, go ahead.
And there was a swing, like a handheld swing. Sorry, I scooted back there. There's a handheld swing that you could swing over the creek and back. It was the coolest thing ever. And I remember that very distinctly.
Was the creek
outside on that
good to swim in, or was it just a regular, like, nasty back suburb creek? Or
nasty? Only probably about 10 feet deep, honestly. So if we fell, we would just have a slight broken bone.
You're speaking of a Texas river, not just a creek.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
If it was 10 feet deep.
And again, I'm a little kid, so it might have only been like a foot deep. But to me, it was a ravine. It was a ravine. That
could lead into mine. I was 4. I remember my 3rd birthday party, and then the following year, we were at the same house still, and I believe I was 4 years old. And my older siblings and the neighbors who were older by 2 and 4 years. So 10-year-olds were out playing, and I was following along, and there was a creek. And in my mind, it was at least, this is what I used in my head. I thought it was as long as if I stood up and put my arms all the way up, like, to get across.
It was one Chris long.
Yes, that's what I thought to myself as a little kid, because I didn't know feet.
It was like 4 clumps of printers wide and 5 cheese dollhouses tall.
And I remember, like, standing beside it, and it probably had a foot or so down, and it was all grassy, and like the grass was going over the side into this, and it was water. So it was like actual, like, a water creek, which was rare to me as a kid in Texas. And I thought, this is terrifying. If I fall into that, this will be the end. I knew the consequences would be either I'm gone or I'm in terrible trouble with my parents.
You're being washed away by this torrent.
No, it was not
creek.
moving. No, there was no movement. But my little 4-year-old brain thought, this is it.
It sounds like that scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights where the guy won't let him pass if you don't pay the roll.
Yes.
You don't have a roll, you can't pay the toll or whatever.
And what
then
made
he
it
falls
so,
in and he's drowning. I'm drowning.
And what made it so important was everybody else had jumped across.
Whoa.
And I couldn't.
Oh,
and they were
buddy.
like continuing on the fun adventure. And I was just left behind.
Don't leave me. Oh, little did they know they were messing with President Chris.